A very good evening and welcome to Biz First Review 360. I'm Charlene Benedict. First, a look at your top stories. The Asian Development Bank this week said that Sri Lanka will no longer be eligible for soft loans or loans that are favourable to the borrower as of 1st of January 2019. Given Sri Lanka's rising per capita gross national income, the island will no longer be eligible for soft loans from January 2019, according to the Asian Development Bank. Soft loans are given primarily to developing countries and is known to be favourable to the borrower. The Asian Development Bank said Sri Lanka will be graduating to its Group C country category with eligibility to borrow only from ordinary capital resources from next year. Ordinary capital resources loans are known to be negotiated at near market terms. ADB adopts a classification system to determine the eligibility of developing countries to borrow to near market terms, concessional terms or grants. Fitch Ratings maintains negative outlook for the banking sector. Fitch Ratings maintained a negative outlook for Sri Lanka's banking sector, saying operating conditions remain challenging, which could put pressure on performance during the rest of 2018 and possibly 2019. However, the rating agency said the performance of banks coming under its coverage remained fairly stable through 2017 and the first quarter of 2018, with credit profiles being broadly intact. Sri Lankan banks have raised Tier 1 capital of 66 billion rupees and Tier 2 capital of 45 billion rupees since 2017 in line of reaching full base 3 compliance by 2019. Fitch Ratings said further capital raising is likely in 2018, although much of the shortfall was bridged in 2017. However, the agency warned that high credit costs could continue to hamper profitability in 2018. State Minister of International Trade says that Sri Lanka should look beyond apparels and move into electronics and machinery to boost exports and to strengthen the rupee. State Minister of International Trade Sujiva Senasinghe, addressing the 15th Exporters Forum, said that Sri Lanka has to increase its volume of exports and diversify into electronics and machinery to earn more foreign exchange.
විශේෂයෙන්ම අපේ රුපියලේ අගය වැඩි කරගන්න නම් අප නැයන අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන ප්‍රමාණයෙන් දෙගුණයක්.
If we are to strengthen the rupee, we have to double or triple our exports. If you look back at the last 20 years, from about 1994, there has been no new exports, though we have maintained the level of exports over the years. Our expenditure has largely increased during this period. One of the reasons for the dollar to appreciate against the rupee is the stagnation of our exports. As a percentage of GDP, exports have dropped from about 32% to 14% during this period. This downward trend could continue unless we diversify our exports and move beyond tea, coconut and rubber to more tech-based electronic items and machinery, just like countries like Thailand and Malaysia did. We need to move beyond apparel manufacturing. We are in this crisis today because we didn't move from traditional exports to new industries like electronics and machinery.
දියුණු තාක්ෂණයක අදාළ විශේෂම නිෂ්පාදන වලට අපේ රට යොමු වෙන්න.
With the government target of reaching $22 billion in export earnings by 2020, Senasinghe urged more Sri Lankans to become exporters. Is microfinancing really lifting people out of poverty in Sri Lanka? Stay tuned. We will be back with an interesting discussion with the author of the Handbook of Entrepreneurs, Eranda Ginige, on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching Biz First Review 360. We now cross over to Newsfirst Chathuranga Hapuarachchi, who is in discussion with the founder of social enterprise Lanka and the author of the Handbook of Social Entrepreneurs, Eranda Ginige.
So I'm in discussion with Mr. Eranda Ginige, the founder of Social Enterprise Lanka and the author of the handbook, Sarthaka Samaja Vyavasayakek Veemata Maga, or the Handbook for Social Entrepreneurs. And one of the key issues that the country faces seems to be at the moment these exorbitant interest rate driven microfinance loan schemes. And we've seen, yesterday we had a news report of a woman going and attacking an 11-year-old child in Jaffna because the parents delayed the interest payment that was due. So things like that have gone into, in your book, I just saw that you had mentioned how the loan schemes, microfinance came in through Bangladesh and how this has become now, rather than being a solution, a big economic problem to the country. So that is a major issue that we face, don't you think?
Absolutely. So, you know, as you say, and I've written in the book itself, all the idea of microfinancing has been there for a while. It becomes prominent in Bangladesh, as you said, by the famous Professor Muhammad Yunus, who is a social entrepreneur, right? Started Grameen. But the difference, Chathuranga, is Professor Muhammad Yunus wanted to take that massive population in Bangladesh that is struggling every day in poverty, in absolute poverty, right? So he wanted to take those people out of poverty. That was his ultimate objective, aim, everything. That's all he wanted to do, and he came up with a mechanism to do that, right? And that's how it became successful. And behind the whole lending money at a high interest rate, there is an entire support system, if you look at it, right? It's not just giving money to a few women, a group of women, right? There's a huge support mechanism, right? But what happened was, as it became a very successful business, which is a social enterprise, it's one of the biggest, billion-dollar social enterprises in the world, which, let me use that example to also tell to the viewers that social enterprises are not just startups, right? Social enterprises can be very big. But then what happened was the banks and the financial institutions particularly, and these traditional NGOs, saw this as an opportunity to generate revenue, right? So that's what happened in Sri Lanka particularly, and it has happened in some other countries as well. But here now it has gone to a unbearable level, and these financial institutions are just pushing microfinance loans, and and their staff members don't even know what is microfinance, what is the purpose of this. Nobody knows. Even the managers don't know, right? They're just pushing these loans to people. They just go to some place and get a group of women and just shove it on them. There is no support mechanism, as you have very, very well reported. Some of these women don't even know that this was a loan and what is the purpose of this, how to manage this, why is this given, and so on. So it's a terrible, evil thing to do, actually, by responsible finance institutions, and that's why we definitely need very, very strong regulation. So now, instead of microfinancing becoming a solution, a social-centered solution, now it has created a social issue, a new social problem in the country. And it's very unfortunate that a lot of women, out of pressure, out of shame, are turning to suicide, right? And I know many examples, because I work in North and East, particularly in the East Belt. There are so many cases like that, right? So yeah, it is a big social problem now.
Eranda, let me continue from that. We know that you had the opportunity to work internationally when it comes to matters pertaining to the economy, and when it comes to the examples that are provided to us internationally, we know that matters like this, loan schemes, microfinance loan schemes, are monitored by a very powerful authority of the government. But when it comes to this particular high interest rate loan schemes in our country, we know that it's not regulated by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. So isn't that a problem too?
Absolutely, no question. So the simple answer is yes, right? These financial institutions, they will bring so many reasons, right? And I saw the session with my good friend Mr. Tyagaraja as well. So his points are valid. Yeah, there's a cost, right? There's a cost and there's a risk. So you add it up. But then what about the reality on the ground? When you charge this much of interest rate, our normal interest rates itself are very high, and then you charge another premium on it. How can a practical enterprise, a micro entrepreneur, run a business and return that much of profit to pay back these roads? It's impossible. If you can run enterprises which generate that much of return, then it's not normal. There's got to be something wrong somewhere. They have to do something illegal to make that much of return, right? So it is practically impossible to sustain this business, right? It's already collapsing, and it's going to collapse, right? It's going to create it's only going to create far worse problems. When these mothers die, the children are going to suffer, and it's going to create more social problems. So it is critical that the relevant authorities step in, and I would say more, start by controlling instead of regulating. Start by controlling. You might even have to put a cap right now, right, to see what is really happening, right, and then come up with a proper policy, because the act and all that is not very powerful, right? It's not doing what is supposed to do. I always say that there's no point in having something if it is not doing what it is supposed to do, right? So these policies are not delivering it. At the end of the day, all you guys, all the banks and financial institutions, no matter how good intentioned you are, if you're not delivering what is supposed to be delivered, then what's the point of doing it, right? And Mr. Tyagaraja brings out a good point that all this, a lot of these NGOs have now become microfinance lenders, because this impact investment funds and stuff like that are being now channeled to microfinance, which is actually wrong in my opinion, because it's not delivering impact, rather problems. These guys have to be very strongly controlled. Right, a lot of these NGOs that went kind of bankrupt after we became a middle income country are now becoming this microfinance lenders, which is a serious problem, and that needs to be curbed, needs to be controlled. Having said that, I'm not going to entirely just dismiss microfinance as bad, because there are obviously people who would have benefited from it, right? But as a social entrepreneur myself, and I write this in the book, because you are making some positive impact, you can't justify negative impact. Right? My point is, if there is at least one woman dying, killing herself out of shame or because she can't pay the interest of microfinance, then that is a failure of the microfinance industry collectively, right? So you should have the aspiration to make sure that not even one woman would die because of your product. Right? That is your responsibility. That is how you become a responsible business. You can't say, well, it is the ownership is with the borrower, all that nonsense. That era is gone, Chathuranga. That age of how you do business is gone, and the world has realized that it is not working. Right? That is why concepts like social entrepreneurship, sustainability, circular economy kind of concepts are now coming. Right? And what we are trying to do is make that change happen in this country, right? So as responsible businesses, regulated businesses that have huge amounts of assets and resource, you should be the pioneers. You should take the plunge. You should set an example. You should be able to come together and solve these problems yourself, rather than even waiting for a government regulator to come and do it. You have the responsibility to do it. So why don't you take the responsibility and show how it is done?
On that note, we cross over to a short commercial break, but stay tuned. On the other side, we will find the answer to the question, is the labour force in Sri Lanka geared for economic growth? Welcome back. You're watching BizFirst Review 360. On our Speak Your Mind segment, Ganeshan Wignaraja from the Lakshman Kadiragaman Institute will be speaking on equipping the labour force for economic growth.
So one of the challenges that I observe in our university system is that students learn by rote. So the lecturer often gives out notes. These are kind of mugged up, and then people go to the exam and regurgitate the notes. That is perhaps not the best way to teach people. We must encourage critical thinking, so that students are given a reading list with a number of things to read. They come and form an argument, and this is then put in an exam or in a discussion setting. So we need to encourage that type of thinking if we want to have students of capability, particularly for more and more open economy over time. In terms of the education system, we must provide those sorts of skills plus the technical skills, particularly in the STEM subjects, science, engineering, mathematics, and business and economics. I think these are very important, as well as of course law. And I think that is a fundamental thing coming out of the university system. We need to combine these with business internships provided particularly in the private sector. both large companies and small and medium enterprises. But of course, the public sector also takes graduates of this type, and they should also provide work placements. I think we have some very good private sector institutions, but we also have some good public sector institutions. The central bank comes to mind, the Ministry of Finance is another, and there are other sectors as well. So we need to ensure that really the universities provide the raw material of good, well-trained, well-rounded graduates, and that these graduates have work placements so they can understand the demands of business and of skills. And then this would really provide the right kind of match. So I think we need to rethink these things very carefully. So there's a vicious cycle that's created. You have arts graduates, particularly in the really soft subjects coming out of the universities. They often cannot find jobs in the private sector because the skills that you need in the STEM subjects as well as in economics and business are lacking, and law. So they typically have to end up by going into low productivity public sector jobs. Those are attractive because they provide a pension and a stable income and a job for life, but you don't advance very far. So we create a kind of a frustration, while the private sector, which is essentially the driver of wealth and growth in any open economy, is starved of the graduates that it needs. So we have this huge mismatch, and by the way, all of this is being paid for out of the general government kitty. So I think we need to take a really hard look at this, because ultimately Sri Lanka's best resource are its people. And gosh, Sri Lankans seem to do very well abroad, and in the private sector we need to ensure that the public sector also comes up to these types of standards, so that we are doing a fair service to our youth in Sri Lanka.
In your other news this week, Prasanna Padmanathan, the CEO and founder of Ultima Training Bags, the Training Leader of Asia 2018 award at the Best Employer Brands Awards Training and Development Award 2018, organized by the World HRD Congress.
Every year the World HRD Congress pick a training leader out of 30 Asian countries, and this year I applied for it. It was like a 2-month process of application, and the winner will be announced in Singapore out of all 30 country organizations. And on 31st of July, I won this award in Singapore. I feel so privileged and proud of winning this particular award. So the criteria for this award, what they look is how well you have achieved as a trainer, what is the impact that you have made in your training participants, and what type of technical abilities, what are the technology you have used, what are the modern training methodologies that you have used in the areas of delivering trainings. So with the support of my clients, very good comments, even my training participants' testimonials, I was able to apply for this award, and I was able to win this award. And I think this is the first time this particular award is won by a Sri Lankan, and I'm so happy and I'm so excited about this particular achievement, and I'm really glad that I was able to bring this to Sri Lanka, and I'm looking forward to continuously do a lot of trainings, not only in Sri Lanka but in different countries around the world. And if I need to talk a little bit about my trainings, why I find my trainings a little bit different from the rest, my training programs are highly customized, and mainly I train people on their soft skills. So therefore, the areas on personality development, on personal branding, on management skills development, on training people on leadership and team working. Also, as I am a marketeer, I train people also on customer servicing, selling and marketing. These areas actually give me a lot of courage because I am also a marketeer, also a psychologist. So this enables me to interact with my audience in a very positive way, and also to bring modern training techniques into my training rooms. So I have trained close to 15,000 Sri Lankan participants, over 120 companies in Sri Lanka. At the same time, I have trained close to 75 nationalities around the world. So I believe that I could inspire people, and also I get inspiration from my training participants around the world. So this is something very cool, and also gives me some sort of a kick of meeting people on a day-to-day basis, meeting them, talking to them, training them, engaging with them with a lot of different things, it's keeping me going in life. I never actually expected to become a trainer, to be honest. I'm an IT graduate from University of Westminster, and I'm also a chartered marketeer from the CIM UK. It was an accident why I got into the training business, because I got an opportunity to go and speak to a few people from a corporate organization. It was not actually a training, but like a talk. When I spoke to them, they all loved it and they rated me excellent. And the person who actually wanted me to speak at that particular event said that you have, I think, some sort of a skill that you could speak in front of people. And that's how actually my training journey started. But I just took 2 years from 2011 to 13 to realize whether I'm good at it, whether do people accept me as a trainer, can I actually do training. Then yes, after that assurance being given by my clients and my training participants, in 2013 November, I founded my training company Ultima Training. For this November we are 5 years old, but within this 5 years time we were able to achieve a lot of things, and we were able to influence a lot of people, and the awards that we have won. So in 2016 we won our first training and development award, where I became the most outstanding corporate trainer in South Asia out of 8 countries. Then again 2017, last year, I became the trainer of the year in Sri Lanka at the Best Employer Brands Award. And again the World HRD Congress last year picked 100 leaders in the world in training and development, and I was picked from Sri Lanka as a global leader in training and development. And this year, like being a cherry on the top, the Training Leader of Asia award was given to me. So I have to really thank the people who actually helped me to come this far, especially my clients who believed in me, who gave me a lot of trainings, workshops, projects to train their employees, and also my participants for their positive feedback, for their positive comments, their encouragement, and their continuous support and testimonials, which actually enabled me to go this far.
And that's all the news we have for you from Biz First Review 360. Until next time, take care and God bless.